Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa Parivadivacharya Ashto Tarasata Śrīmad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupada ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shyama Kundara Kundagiri Govardhana ki Shri Vrindavan Dham ki Shri Mayapur Navadvip Dham ki Shri Purushottam Kshetra ki Shri Ganga Mai ki jai Sajamana Mai ki jai Bhakti Devi ki jai Tulsi Devi Maharani ki jai Harinam Sankirtana ki jai Kantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the Sum devotees. All glories to the Sum devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Śrīmad Bhāgavatam, Canto 7, The Science of God. Chapter 8, The Lord slays the king of the demons. Text number 14. Oh. I think I will use the flashlight. Not much better. Evam duruktair muhuradayanusha Sutam mahabhagavatam mahasuraha Khadgam pragriyot patito varasanat Stambam tadadati balasvamushtina Evam duraktvar muhuradayan rusha Sutam mahabhagavatam mahasura Khadgam pragriyot patito varasanat Stambam tatadati balasvamushtina Evam duraktair muhuro ardayan rusha Sutam mahabhagavatam mahasura Khadgam pragriyot patito varasanat Stambam tatadati balasvamushtina Evam duraktaya muhuradayan rusha Sutam mahabhagavatam mahasuraha Khadgam pragriyot patito varasanat Stambam satasut Evam duraktar muhuradayan rusha Sutam mahabhagavatam mahasuraha Khadgam pragriyot patito varasanat Stambam tatato. Ladies. Evam duraktair maharadayan rasa Sutam mahabhagavatam mahasuraha Khadgam pragriyot patito varasanat Stambam tatadot alasam Evam Duraktar Muhuradayan Rusha Sutam Mahabhagavatam Mahasutta Kadyam Pragriyot Patito Varasanat Stambam Tatadati Bala Swamushtina Evam. Thus, Duruktai, by harsh words, Muhu, constantly, Adayang, chastising, Rusha, with unnecessary anger, Sutam, his son, Mahabhagavatam, who was a most exalted devotee, Maha-asuraha, Hiranyakashipu, the great demon, Khadgam, sword, Pragriya, taking up, Utpatita, having gotten up, Vara-asanat, from his exalted throne, Stambam, the column, Tatada, struck, Atibalaha, very strong, Swamushtina, by his fist. Being obsessed with anger, Hiranyakashipu, who was very great in bodily strength, thus chastised his exalted devotee son Prahlad with harsh words. Cursing him again and again, Hiranyakashipu took up his sword, got up from his royal throne, and with great anger struck his fist against the column. Mushtina. Swamushtina, mushti. Mushti. What does mushti mean? Here it says mushtina, but mushti. Punch, huh? Yeah. Yeah. You know, one of the wrestlers was called Mushtika. Huh? Mushtika. Mushtina. Fighter. Huh? Puncher. Mr. Mushtika. Tadaiva tasmin inadoti bhishano babuva venanda kataha ashputat vamvai svatishno bhagatam tvajadaya shrutva svadharmat dharmat yayam anga menire. Then from within the pillar came a fearful sound which appeared to crack the covering of the universe. Oh my dear Yudhishthira, this sound reached even the abodes of the demigods like Lord Brahma. And when the demigods heard it, they thought, oh, now our planets are being destroyed. Purport: as we sometimes become very much afraid at the sound of a thunderbolt, perhaps thinking that our houses will be destroyed, the great demigods like Lord Brahma feared the thundering sound that came from the pillar in front of Hiranyakashipu. He asked for it, didn't he? Savikraman putra vidhep shuro jasa nishamya niradam apurvam adbhutam Anta sabayam nadadarsha tatpadam vitatrasurjena surariyutapa. While showing his extraordinary prowess, Hiranyakashipu, who desired to kill his son, heard that wonderful tumultuous sound. Which had never been heard before, or had never before been heard. Upon hearing the sound, the other leaders of the demons were afraid. None of them could find the origin of that sound in the assembly. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 text 8, Krishna explains himself by saying, Rasaham apsukunteya prabhashmi shashi surayoho pranava savavedeshu sabda ke porusham nishu. O son of Kunti, Arjuna, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, the syllable Om in the Vedic literature, in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in ether and ability in man. Here, the Lord exhibited his presence everywhere by the tumultuous sound in the sky. Sabdake. The tumultuous thundering sound was proof of the Lord's presence. The demons like Hiranyakashipu could now realize the supreme ruling power of the Lord, and thus Hiranyakashipu became afraid. However powerful a man may be, he always fears the sound of a thunderbolt. Similarly, Hiranyakashipu and all the demons who were his associates were extremely afraid because of the presence of the Supreme Lord in the form of sound, although they could not trace out the source of the sound. Satyam vidatum nijabritya bhashitam vyaptim chabutesh vakileshu chatmanaha adrisya tat yad bhutarupamudvahan stambe sabhayam namrigam namanusham. To prove that the statement of his servant Prahlad Maharaj was substantial. In other words, to prove that the Supreme Lord is present everywhere, even within the pillar of an assembly hall, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hare exhibited a wonderful form never before seen. The form was neither that of a man nor that of a lion. Thus the Lord appeared in his wonderful form in the assembly hall. Purport. When Hiranyakashipu asked Prahlad Maharaj, "Where is your Lord? Is he present in this pillar?" Prahlad Maharaj fearlessly replied, "Yes, my Lord is present everywhere." Therefore, to convince Hiranyakashipu that the statement of Prahlad Maharaj was unmistakably true, the Lord appeared from the pillar. The Lord appeared as half lion and half man. so that Hiranyakashipu could not understand whether the great giant was a lion or a human being. To substantiate Prahlad's statement, the Lord proved that his devotee, as declared in Bhagavad Gita, is never vanquished. Konteha pratijanihi name bhakta pranasyati. Prahlad Maharaj's demoniac father had repeatedly threatened to kill Prahlad, but Prahlad was confident that he could not be killed, since he was protected by the Supreme Lord. By appearing from the pillar, the Lord encouraged his devotees, saying, in effect, "Don't worry, I am present everywhere." Oh no, sorry. I am present here. By manifesting his form as Nrsingadev, the Lord also preserved the truth of Lord Brahma's promise that Hiranyakashipu was not to be killed by an animal or any man. The Lord appeared in a form that could not be said to be fully a man or a lion. Gyanaatimirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kada Mahiyam Dadati Sva Padantikam Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate gurim Yakripa tamaham bande Shri Gurum dinataridam. Excuse me. So, Lord Nrsingadev has appeared initially in the form of sound. Cracking. Cracking the cover of the universe. Appeared to crack. Asputat. Andakataham. And even the demigods were worried. Once, a few years ago, when Prabhu was living in I forgot the name of the suburb, near Mordialloc, or not quite as far as Mordialloc. And we were driving to his place one Saturday night. We're going over to his place to have prasadam. Rati Priya is a fantastic cook, by the way. And it was a stormy night. And we were driving on the Nepean highway, and then all of a sudden there was this huge crashing sound. Right? And this huge bolt of lightning came out of the sky and hit this tree. Right? And we drove past the tree, and the tree the tree was burning. So incredibly powerful manifestation of energy, potency, right? Potency. And shaking, this is what they call earth-shattering. Earth-shattering, the potency of a lightning bolt. Isn't that Lord Indra's weapon? The lightning bolt? Yeah. The King of Heaven has a lightning bolt. Of course, ultimately that energy or that potency, that power comes from Krishna. He's the Adi Purusham, the original person from which everybody else comes. He's the source of everything. So, the source of everybody's power and the source of Indra's thunderbolts' power. So, when the demigods heard that sound of the Lord cracking the presence of the universe, then they were worried. Oh, now our planets are being destroyed. Huh? Swadhama, Swadam, their abodes. Right? Swadam, Sadam apyayam angamenire. They thought, ooh, we're about to be destroyed. So, they talk about the fear of God. Right? We hear of the fear of God. And ultimately, what does in that case, what does God represent? When he manifests like that, what does he represent? And why were the demigods so scared? What does he represent in that form? What's that? Anger, yeah. Anger, but what else?
Personification of death.
Yes. The personification of death. Krishna, in a form of time, destroys everything. Right? Everything ultimately will be destroyed in the material creation. Everything is destroyed. There are two realms. One is the spiritual realm, where nothing is determined by the time factor. Whereas in the material world, everything is finite. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And everybody fears death. Except for a devotee. We see that in the character of Prahlad Maharaj. Even though he was threatened so many times by his demoniac father, he was not perturbed. A devotee is not perturbed by the comings and goings of the material world. I was talking to Keith the other day, the gentleman that we've been working with in our strategic planning, and I was telling him about the party that the farewell that we had for Prana, Prabhu. And he was quite shocked. He said, "How do you come to terms with death?" Because death is, it's rather, it's inevitable. But it's a defining moment, a punctuation mark, right? So, and very, shocking for many people because of the identification with the body. And when the body is destroyed, then the self is gone. The notion of one's personality in relationship with the body is that it's destroyed, and so therefore the concept of self is destroyed. Right? So as I was explaining to Keith, it's the culture. It's the culture. In European culture, you go to church once a week. Remember God once a week. But I said in the Vedic culture, especially Indian culture, but not only Asian culture broadly, you go to the temple every day. Right? Not only do you go to the temple every day, but you have a temple in your house, right? Where you do your daily puja. And so everybody's cultivating this conception of relationship with God, right? That's the first thing. And then the second thing is that, and the first teachings, if we have a relationship with God, then what are his first teachings, basically? Any hands up who thinks they know what the first teachings of God are? Nobody? Yeah, well, what's the first teachings of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita? You're not the body. Yeah, you're not the body. Right? This is the culture. Right? We hear every day, you're not the body, you're not the body, you're not the body. The body, and not only that, what is it? I mentioned this verse the other day. Na sato vijate bhavo, na bhavo vijate sataha. Of the permanent, there is no cessation, and of the temporary, there is no endurance. Right? These are the first teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Right? So this body is temporary, always changing, right? Always changing. Just like our clothes, we're always changing our clothes. Like a guy called here looks like he's straight out of prison, right? He's got his prison outfit on. Yeah. We're all in prison, right? In the prison of the material world. In the prison of this body, actually. Bodies are a great restriction in many respects. But of course, the human form of life, or the human form gives us an opportunity to understand these things, and that's the culture. And why the culture of the Bhagavatam is so important. Because in the regular hearing of the Bhagavatam, this culture of permanent as opposed to impermanent, spiritual as opposed to material, cultivating knowledge, cultivating the ability to discriminate between permanent and temporary, matter and spirit. And so a devotee is not perturbed by pending death, because it's pending for all of us, effectively, right? And so a devotee has to, or acknowledges that ultimately we're all working under the auspices of the Lord, and He determines when we come and when we go. And even with the demise of the body, here we hear of Prahlad Maharaj being protected by the Lord, but even Prahlad Maharaj didn't live forever. There's a certain point in time where even Prahlad Maharaj left the material world, right? But not perturbed, because wherever devotee goes, he knows he's ultimately under the protection of Krishna, and will come into the association of the devotees again, or be reinstated in the spiritual realm. But for the materialistic mind, there's no understanding, and so that's why there's this fear of death, because there's no future in that. Whereas the nature of the soul is, it's always present. This sense of being, the sense of identity. On the one hand, we're identified with the body, which is temporary, limited, and has to die. But on the other hand, we have an aspiration to live forever, because that's our natural condition of the living entity, because it's sat. Permanent is that we'll live forever. That's the nature of the soul. We'll live forever. We're not going to die. So there's immediately a what do you call it? It's a dilemma, right? We've got a material body that's going to die, but we ourselves feel like we live forever, because we're the permanent within the body, right? Our identification with self remains the same, even though the body's changing, right? So one concept of self is the body, of course, right? When you pinch your body, what do you feel it, right? If I punch you on the nose, you'll feel it. Right? But then again, it's a passing phenomena. And even though we identify with the body, at the same time we also see the body as separate from us. Prabhupada gives the example, it's my hand, my head, even on the subtle platform, my mind or my intelligence, right? We identify as something separate from these things and the owner or the possessor of, right? So that cultivation of learning or understanding is present in Brahminical culture and in Vaishnava culture especially. And we see that in the character of Prahlad Maharaj. Prahlad Maharaj was steeped in that understanding and that realization, and so deeply faithful to the Lord that despite the fact that Hiranyakashipu tried to kill him so many times, he couldn't, because he was being protected, right? And thus proves the point, Kunteya pratijanihi na me bhakta pranasyati. A devotee is never destroyed. And even if the body is destroyed, the living entity is not, and will take birth again in the association of the devotees or in the spiritual realm. Which is why the devotees are not perturbed by death and the threat of death. And why Lord Nrsingadev appeared ultimately to protect his devotee. And so Prahlad Maharaj, demonstrates this strong faith of a devotee. Now, how did that come about? What was Prahlad Maharaj's qualification that made him such a faithful devotee? Why was his faith so strong? Shraddha. Why? Does anybody know? Or raise your hands if you think you know. Gopa?
He heard from a pure devotee.
Yes, he heard from a pure devotee. Isn't that amazing? When you think about it, right? What's the qualification for being a devotee? What's our qualification for being a devotee? Huh? To hear. Yeah. Ado Shraddha. Have some faith, actually. At least have some faith. But how is that faith nourished or developed? By hearing. Shravanadi Sudachitte Karaye Udoy. The Krishna Prema, the Nitya Siddha, the perfection, the eternal perfection of Krishna Prema is all, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Krishnadas Kaviraj says, Nitya-siddha Krishna Prema is already in the heart of a devotee, right? It's already there, but dormant, asleep, right? Almost. But the potential is there. And that potential is brought out by the process of hearing and chanting and the other 9 processes of devotional service, which is taught by Prahlad Maharaj, right? And what's the first item? Shravanam, hearing. Yeah, hearing. It wasn't, that he performed great austerities. It wasn't that he performed sacrifices. It wasn't that he studied the Vedas, right? It wasn't because he gave in charity. None of those things. It was simply because he heard from a devotee, pure devotee. Huh? This is what makes us devotees. Right? The fact that we like to hear. I was reading a nice, unrelated but related at the same time. Uddhava was speaking to Krishna after Krishna had given him instructions. It's in the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. Actually, it's from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the process of devotional service, which is it's the 22nd chapter of the Madhya Lila of the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And quoting the Bhagavatam. And Uddhava says that one who is neither too austere or too renounced, neither too attached to sense gratification, but who's inclined to hear from the devotees, is eligible for devotional service, right? Right? So, not detached, not attached, but wants to hear. This is a qualification of a devotee. How we determine sincerity. Right? No material qualifications. All spiritual. And that's measured by hearing. And then what after hearing, then what? Huh? Kirtanam, some chanting, yes. Usually for us, 16 rounds. Right? Basically. 16 rounds, but not only that, Sankirtanam, right? In Lord Chaitanya's mission, or Lord Chaitanya's application of bhakti, then the hearing is followed by applying what you heard, right? And one of the first things that we hear is what? What's the first thing that we hear? Huh? Chant Hare Krishna. Yeah. Yep. The Hare Krishnas are pretty complicated people, right? You're not the body, chant Hare Krishna, right? And we test, that's how we test a devotee. They chant. They like to chant. They like to hear. Wasn't it Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur marked Srila Prabhupada, right? Mentioned to his disciples. He hears, right? He hears. And of course, that's what Prahlad Maharaj did. And the amazing thing is that, he was hearing in the womb of his mother. Right? Wow. Even while his mother was nodding off. Right? So even if we're nodding off in a Bhagavatam class, at least there's still benefit. Better to be at the Bhagavatam class asleep than not there at all. Some of it will wear off. But then what's the qualification? Generally speaking, we see of a devotee is attachment to chanting. When we're chanting Hare Krishna, then Krishna makes all sorts of arrangements for the devotee. He's situated within everybody's heart. He's directing the wanderings of everybody, and especially for the devotees, he's making arrangements. Fulfilling their desires, sometimes not fulfilling their desires, giving them enough but not too much to harm or to weaken their faith, shraddha, and keeping them in the association of the devotees. So there's that cultivation all the time of bhakti, hearing, and why the Bhagavatam is so important. And Prahlad Maharaj himself observes, this is my good fortune that I got the association of a pure devotee. This is my qualification. I have no qualification, actually. We have no qualifications, but somehow by Krishna's arrangement we got the association of the devotees, and in the association of the devotees we got to hear about bhakti, right? And somehow, by some good fortune, it stuck, right? And we follow the instructions. That's the test, I guess. Because there are those who hear and then, like in the Bhagavad Gita, what's that? There's that verse, what is it, 2? I don't know what 32 is it? 2. Some speak of the soul as amazing, right? Some hear of the soul as amazing, right? And some hear of the soul but cannot understand him at all, right? So the good fortune is to always have that association of the devotees and always hear and it's interesting, Prabhupada mentions, Chaitanya Charitamrita mentions, actually this is the mercy of Krishna speaking the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, because we get to hear that conversation, right? And benefit from the instructions contained within. There's a benefit of hearing from the devotees or hearing from Krishna himself. Right? And then acting on it. And of course for us the acting is the hearing process, but also the chanting. Hearing and chanting, Shravanam, Kirtanam, the basis of the rest of our service. Remembering, serving, etc. So Prahlad Maharaj wasn't fearful. The demigods were fearful. They heard the cracking sound, right? But Prahlad Maharaj was cognizant of the fact that Well, Krishna is everywhere. Lord Nrsimhadev is everywhere, and he's in the pillar. And just to prove that point, then Lord Nrsimhadev appeared to, first of all, have a bit of a fight, right? He didn't kill Hiranyakashipu straight away because he wanted to have a bit of a fight, right? Which is, you know, Krishna is a person and he has desires, right? He has a purpose. So in this case, he wanted to have a bit of a fight, right? You know, in the spiritual world, everybody's friendly to you and they all bow down and offer prayers and the like. But you don't get a chance to exhibit your power, your real power, right? Because everybody's so nice to you. Which is a bit boring when you think about it, right? You're all powerful, but you don't have a chance to show off your power. Right? Is that right? You see that in the, you know, in the bodybuilding shows, or what do they call them? Competitions. Let me show off my power. There was one devotee just recently who got kind of into bodybuilding. I won't mention any names, but it was a little bewildering, to say the least. Right? But see, like I was saying the other day, man is made in the image of God, right? We like to show off. So God also likes to show off. He's allowed. That's his prerogative, right? If we like to show off, then where do we get that from? Right? He's the Adi Purusha, the original person, so he likes to show off too. That's why, you know, he's the best dresser, right? God's a person. He likes to show off. Not show off. He's naturally attractive. He's the most powerful. That's why he's called Krishna, because he's so beautiful. So he's in Vaikuntha, everybody's offering their obeisances and, you know, no real opportunity to show his power, right? And so therefore, he appears, well, he makes an arrangement so that Jai and Vijay get a curse, they get cursed, and they get an opportunity. What would you like? 5 births as devotees or 3 as demons? They get a choice, but of course, you know, they're devotees. They want to be back in the spiritual world as quickly as possible, so they opt for the 3 births as demons. They want to get back to their service. And so this is how the Acharyas explain the reason for Hiranyakashipu's appearance is so that he can exercise his power, right? He can show his power for many reasons, And we see that here, because now, as Nrsimhadev, he's going to show everybody who's boss. and how he protects his devotees. There's so many instructions in Lord Nrsimhadev's appearance. And you know, one of the primary ones is the qualification of a devotee is that he got the association of devotees. What is it? Sadhu Sangha Sava Shastrakoi Labha Matra Sadhu Sangha Sava Siddhi Hoy. All perfection comes from the association of devotees. How important devotee association is to make spiritual advancement. It's not by our austerities, it's not by our performance of sacrifice, not even by the study of the Vedas. Although we do study, we hear, but it's the Bhakti Shastri, right? Which ultimately is based on hearing from authorities. So, many instructions given by the Leela of Prahlad Maharaj, and we can see in Prahlad Maharaj such faith and determination and tolerance, actually. Very, very tolerant. And lack of fear. Well, the demigods are perturbed because of the cracking sound. And Prahlad Maharaj demonstrated all throughout this pastime complete dependence on the Lord. Quite unique when you think about it. And all because he got the association of Narada Muni. Got the association of a devotee, effectively. We don't hear much about Prahlad Maharaj's previous life. Right? We only hear of how his devotional life started while he was in the womb. Quite amazing. But because of that regular hearing, he's a wonderful devotee. That's his assessment. So, yeah. While showing his extraordinary prowess, Hiranyakashipu, who desired to kill his own son, heard that wonderful tumultuous sound which had never been heard before. Upon hearing the sound, the other leaders of the demons were afraid. So everybody's afraid, even the demigods and the demons. None of them could find the origin of that sound in the assembly. Okay, does anybody have any comments or questions?
Hare Krishna, thank you for the wonderful class. I had two questions.
Two questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
My first question was, if like you said, we like to show off and we are the part and parcels of Krishna, so that means Krishna also likes to show off. But then there are many qualities in us, and people tend to compare, like when that okay, we also have this, so we are also part and parcels of the Lord, so Lord will also have it. So how do we understand that?
Say that again.
Some of the qualities we have is not like palatable.
Oh, some of the qualities we have are not good.
Yeah, and then how do we understand?
Sometimes Krishna's naughty too. Right? You're not naughty though, are you? Eh?
I am.
You are. Oh, you rascal. You're a rascal. Yeah, he's naughty. But you're not as naughty as Krishna. Even though you might be naughty, you're not that naughty. What's the second question?
You said about the crackling of the thunderbolt. The demigods got scared.
Yeah.
So it's they compared it to a thunderbolt. So like, how can they be scared of like such a? Because Indra also has a thunderbolt. So like of a sound, how can they be scared?
Well, Prabhupada makes a comment that, you hear thunder or lightning and you worry whether your house is going to be hit, right? Destroyed, ultimately. That's a fear of everybody's, that fear of destruction of the material, the familiar, the inconsequential, the humdrum of daily life. It's boring, but you don't want it to be destroyed, right? And then where do you go? When your house is destroyed, then what happens, right? So it's that fear of disruption, the fear of the unknown, actually. Not knowing what's going to come next. Which is interesting, for a devotee, the fear of death is nullified by that understanding of one's permanent identity, and the changing of the subtle body and the gross body is and Prabhupada gives the example. It's like going to sleep for a while and then waking up again. So that understanding is not deeply held by everybody. And here even the demigods are worried about the fact that they're, what's going on? Are we going to lose our situation, right? So even though they're devotees, they're not as advanced as Prahlad Maharaj, right? So these are natural even for the devotees. Sometimes there's that fear of the unknown, and again, why we need to hear regularly from the devotees. Śrīmad Bhāgavatam Krishna. Punya Shravana Kirtanaha, right? Removes the fear. I don't think I answered your question necessarily. What was the question again?
No, I got it.
You heard it?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Anything else? There's nothing worse than the fear of missing out on the Mahaprasadam. Right? Eh? It's already been plundered, don't worry. Have no fear that the Mahaprasadam will have been plundered. There might be some halva left. Huh? That'll be all right. Or, there's nothing quite like a good eggplant pakora with tomato chutney. That's generally pretty good. Or a puri and sabji Whew, feeling hungry now. Yeah, quite interesting, isn't it? Prahlad Maharaj himself states, I have no qualification. No? Isn't that amazing? He's such an elevated devotee, but he says, I have no qualification. My only qualification is that I got to hear from a pure devotee. That's Narada Muni. Something to meditate on. When we think how qualified we are, we should realise that we're not. Okay, Grantaraj Śrīmad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaura Bhaktivinoda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Shall I send the results for those who are past, those who are done experiential, and those
I've got those, haven't I?
I send you everything.
Yeah.
Because we had to send individually the sheets.
The results?
Śrīrupam Sakrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanitanstam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,